Hey there, Bill Roman here, host of GuyShrink. We talk about what keeps a guy awake at night and do some deep dives on some really important topics. My guest today is a repeat performer, Jordan Keefe, and he's got some great things to talk about men and pornography. Jordan, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. Excited to be back.
Yeah, all your adventures, you mean you've been all over the map here in that fifth wheel with you and your wife and your little girl.
Yeah, we're loving it. It's quite the adventure.
Yeah, I understand that you learned how to do mechanical, some real auto mechanics, not just the mechanical engineering that you are, but auto mechanics.
Yeah, I've never been mechanical, but if you own an RV or a fifth wheel, you will become, I wouldn't say I'm super mechanical, but I have changed out the suspension. I have fixed a broken leaf spring. And, 2 years ago, I wouldn't even know what those were. So it's been a stretch. It's been an adventure. And yeah, you learn a lot, which is awesome.
Thank goodness for YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. YouTube is a big help, no doubt.
Yeah. You told me about changing that spring. That was quite an adventure.
Yeah, it was wild.
Well, Jordan, welcome back. It's just great to see you after all the travels that you've done and the wisdom that you've accumulated. So what we're going to start the same way we always do, and that just ask you, what keeps you awake at night?
Yeah, I've really been chewing on that question, and this is what I would say, and I think everybody's different, but what keeps me up at night is learning to let go of the uncontrollables in life. And to give you an example per se, as an entrepreneur, our business is never just steady, right? Nothing about entrepreneurship is steady. There are times where I'll sign 3 clients in a day, and there's times where I will go 3 months without a client. And the biggest challenge for me in entrepreneurship has definitely been learning to let go of, okay, when I signed 3 clients in one day, my brain wanted to figure out, what was I doing leading up to this? Was I, acting a certain way? Was I eating certain foods? And we get like super psychoanalytical to figure out, how can I repeat the success that I, assume that I somehow created? And then especially when you go 3 months without signing a client, now you're like, what am I doing that's, stopping clients from coming in? Is it me? Am I acting a certain way? Am I eating certain foods? Is my energy off? And you just kind of drive yourself wild. And, for the last couple of months, especially, my journey has been, when good things happen, stop trying to figure out, okay, what specific things was I doing? Because I ended up driving myself crazy trying to figure out, how can I repeat this success or create it and begin to control it? And that's a dangerous place to get into. And I would say just learning to let go is what keeps me up at night, because it's tough sometimes,
That is just a great observation, good advice. I think when we have some success and we try to parse it out as to what are the 3 things or 5 things I do to do that, and then I write a little manual in my head about doing that. And if I have a couple of successes, next thing you know, I can market myself as I got this figured out, do these 5 easy steps. It's always easy. The word easy is always in there. Something like that. You wouldn't sell much if you said 5 difficult steps. Now you said you were an entrepreneur, and I know that you've got a successful coaching business. And would you tell us about that particular endeavor that you're in?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I started a company called Take a Break from Porn, and really what it is, it's me coaching. I have a course that's out. I have a book that's out. But at the end of the day, it's really about helping guys leave pornography addictions in the past. And it's something, as I struggled with a pornography addiction for 14 years, and, it nearly cost me my marriage. And I had to figure out, how do I go from using pornography on a continual basis, and something that in a way was this crutch that I carried for the longest time, to no more, let's move forward without it. And that point in time can be a very difficult season for guys. And I like to come alongside of them and really help them understand what's going on in their mind, but give them a place where they can safely and, effectively move away from it.
So, what are some of the ideas that you have there about that? I know you and I've talked previously about you talked about internalization of some ideas, and I know that you do not approach it from an addiction kind of process. But so, tell me about some of the ways that you move and coach with a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've found there's different layers to it. And I think every guy seems to be at a different point in time or a different place. Some guys seem to be in this mindset of they can't even fathom the thought of giving it up. And so for guys in that arena, there's this really important place where I have to help them get to, which is coming back to like their real state of mind, because it's been so fried by pornography and by this struggle that it's really difficult for them to even consider giving it up. So I have to work on this baseline fundamental of, hey, like, let's get you to a place where and can acknowledge you don't want to be in this addiction. You don't want to be in this struggle. You want to break free from it. You want to take a break from it. And you're ready to learn and kind of go through the process of what it takes to get out of it. That's, to me, like the fundamental foundation. But once we get through that, it really does boil down to, can they make a decision to not look at it? And can they just walk through the next couple of weeks and months knowing, yeah, there's going to be some really challenging moments that come your way. It's part of the territory. And if you're not aware of what the territory is going to look like, I promise it's going to knock you on your feet. And, if you don't have that decision just rooted in your heart, it's going to make it even more challenging.
Okay, so you talk about the fundamental thing is making a decision, at least to do something about it. I take it that most of the men that call you aren't asking you for tips on how to use porn. They're coming to say, I got something going on for me here. Help me either get out of it or figure it or manage it differently because it's eating me up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And normally there's some ugly circumstances that come along with that, whether it's, a spouse or a partner who's just sick and tired of the habit. It's cost them their job. It's gotten them into some legal trouble. They're being blackmailed, you name it. There's usually some ugliness that is surrounding their request of, I really need help out of this.
So a guy comes and says, I got an issue with this. Would you help me? That sounds like I made a decision to do something differently. Okay, so what are some of the suggestions that you ask a guy to do or think about? I'm a big fan of acting my way into a new way of thinking instead of thinking my way into a new way of acting.
Yes.
So what are the things that you urge a guy to start trying out to do?
Yeah. There's a couple that are kind of just go-to things that really helped me out. One of which is mindful breathing. I know you're super aware of mindful breathing and the effect and the power that it has, but I always want to start my clients with just that kind of daily practice, a couple times a day, just doing some breathing exercises. Once we have that kind of established, then it's really just trying to get comfortable with our urges. I just simply have them rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. And sometimes all it takes is that kind of hypothetical or imaginative turning around and facing your urge instead of this turn your back on it, hope it doesn't affect you, and close your eyes and pray for the best. If I can get them to turn around and look at it and begin to assess, okay, you know what? Today, my urges were a 3 out of 10. They weren't that severe. They weren't that intense. They wake up the next day and it's a 10 out of 10. And they're like, holy moly, I don't know how to make it through this. But we have them track it. That way, after a week or two, you can kind of start to see patterns and we can begin to dissect. Oh, you seem to struggle on Saturday. Let's investigate why. Oh, you're bored on Saturday. Let's figure this out. Is it okay to be bored? And it just opens so many other doors. So mindful breathing, tracking their urges is the second one. And then the third one is kind of just having a place to vent and share the emotional pressure cooker that we live in. As guys, we're not always the best at kind of sharing how we truly feel about something, or if we feel frustrated or if we feel angry about something, we kind of just stuff it and ignore it. And I find that a lot of guys will stay stuck in their pornographic cycle simply because they don't know how to release the pressure that's inside that these emotions create. And, the time that we get to spend together, I find is generally most effective when we're talking about kind of the ups and downs of the week that they just went through, or things that they're experiencing, or things that their partner or their spouse is doing, or their kids are doing that rub them the wrong way, and they don't know how to cope with it or how to process. So it's kind of that three-pronged
Okay.
initiation is how I like
Okay.
to look at that.
Okay. So the breathing thing, at least how I understand mindful breathing, is a way to slow down my reactivity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I actually pay attention to breathing, I have less attention to pay attention to other things. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
one of the things. So slowing down my reactivity. Then the other second thing that you're suggesting is, I think you said, you keep track of, get some data
Yeah.
into what's happening. If you have some actual data for like 2 weeks worth, then you can realize there's some patterns. And I think that's an important thing. What kind of patterns happen? And then the third thing was, is there a safe place to kind of process not just, hey, I'm having trouble with porn, but just my everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine most of the guys that come to you, at least for me, that's an issue that, man, it's either caused something in their relationship or their partner is unaware of what's going on. And so it wouldn't be a safe place for them to do their unloading on, if that
Right.
makes sense. So
Yes.
I'm hearing that guy friendships are really important, at least that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even go a little deeper than just a guy friendship, because you can be friends with a guy and never really talk about something real. You just stay at the surface and you talk about football, or, stuff happening with the kids, or just stuff up here. Right. But the real emotional things that we carry are much deeper down. And sometimes just having that sort of neutral party who, I'm not going to get mad at you, at my client, for feeling upset about something that happened, or feeling really happy about something that happened. I'm just here to listen, to observe, and to let you have a safe place where you can actually share that without somebody cramming it back down your throat a week later, or, a month later, or a year later.
Mm.
So,
You don't need to be reminded of it, that's for sure.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with a couple of guys where that's happened to them. Unfortunately, they were in a church group, and the church group kind of self-appointed themselves to out this guy or the guys to their either significant others or wives or whatever if they would have a relapse. Well, you're not going to confess about having a relapse if you know that you're going to get outed. Uh,
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
not
Yeah.
helpful. Not
No.
not helpful. So you kind of see it differently than an addiction per se. Although you and I have talked about dopamine and its effects on us. How did you come to that place of being less convinced it's an addiction and more about maybe it's a habit of managing anxiety and boredom?
Yeah. No, it's when you really stop and when you spend a lot of time in this area, it really does become clear to at least me that, this is not some kind of medical, oh, I can't stop doing this, I have to have more of it. It does follow that pattern per se, because our desires can dwindle, they can fade. We can get burnt out on watching the same clip over and over, so we have to go more extreme, and it can definitely grow. But at the same time, there's nothing that's forcing anybody to stay in it. It is simply a choice that we make, and we make it continually, and we set up things that make it simple for us to turn to choose to pornography. And I think in the same vein, we can set things up in our lives and really just understand how we can choose to look at it differently and choose not to step back into that cycle over and over and over again. And once you get there,
More
it's
than
pretty.
wishful thinking, then. It sounds like you're encouraging people, encouraging guys, have a plan. I'm going to call it sobriety just because that's a word that's out there.
Yeah.
So my plan of sobriety might begin with looking at myself in the mirror in the morning, let's just say that, and saying to myself, as I look at myself, today I'm choosing to be a sober man.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I remember when we talked about that, you said, and don't mope about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me, that second part is, if you don't get the second part down, you will struggle in holding on to that decision. And it's fascinating because that formula, and I know guys haven't been privy to our conversation, but there really is that two-step process. It is making the decision, that's step one, to not look at pornography. But then step two is not moping about it. And that second part literally comes out of the Bible when Jesus is talking about fasting, and he's like, don't be like the hypocrites who and the Pharisees who, they look sad and they look somber when they're fasting, but instead just put oil on your head, go about your day. And if you think about the energy that one person would carry versus the other, the Pharisees are going to be like, just, oh, I'm so fatigued, I'm so faintish, I need a little cracker or something. They're going to be wanting to turn back to food because they're just carrying such negative energy. But when you have oil on your head, you're going about your day, you go work out, do your normal things, you're like, okay, I can survive without this thing that I've thought I've needed to use to survive. And I've seen that over and over again. And I sometimes encourage clients to start like implementing that process with something other than pornography, but do it with some food item. For me, I've done it with sugar at different times in my life where, maybe I thought I was just eating sugar too continuously or too much. And I just decided to cut it out cold turkey. And I made a decision to not eat sugar or not consume it. And then I didn't mope about it. And so when those cravings come of, I could really use a donut or a cookie, I just give me a cookie, please. You don't allow yourself to go there. You stop the moping. You're like, no, I made a decision. I'm not going to eat sugar. That's it. And you just go. And if you can start with something outside of pornography, you learn the mechanics and the fundamentals, and then you roll it over to pornography and you just kind of hit it. And yeah, I'm making this decision. I'm not going to mope. Urges are going to come. Cravings are going to come, but I don't have to bow down to it. I've got the oil on my head. I feel good.
So I'm afraid you say, let's test this out. Let's do a behavioral experiment and try something out.
Yeah.
Make a decision. I'm going to do X. Let's say I'm going to do this for 2 weeks. And then every day you make that decision to continue whatever it is. And in this case, be like, sure. And then not mope about it. I think that's really, really a good idea about mope about it, because otherwise the negativity of the moping is going to drag you down.
Yeah. Right.
I'm reminded, as we were talking about Churchill's black dog. I think you and I've talked about that before, how he mastered, well, at least managed his depression, his depressed mood better than he had while he was drinking. Yeah. And one of those things was to say, hey, well, it's here. And then saying, I don't have time to play with you right now. Go over there and lay down. And it worked because he personified that mood into the dog or something that he could actually command to say, go over there and lay down. And that was not moping about it, I don't think.
Right. No.
That's a great idea.
It is. And I think, if I can use a different example that kind of ties that concept in, if you think about, Navy SEAL training, one of the most intense programs that I think anybody as a human could go through. It's like 80% dropout rate from people who start. And I really believe that a part of what boils down inside of that is the guys who all start, like they all want to get through it. Let's not kid ourselves. Everybody who starts the SEAL training program probably in their heart of hearts wants to make it through and become a Navy SEAL. So what defines who makes it and who doesn't? I think it's the people who are capable of calling out, wow, I feel tired. Wow, I feel exhausted. I feel like my body is going to break. And it's the ones who can call that out and say, go sit in the corner. I appreciate you coming here. I don't need your help right now. Thanks for showing up, but go sit down. And they power through. And it's the ones who are like, I'm just so tired. I can't do this. And they just kind of grab the dog and hold on super tight and look at him straight in the face, because that's all they can see is, I'm exhausted. I'm going to die. My body's going to break down, and all these negative things are going to happen. So yeah, it is. If you can just tell it, go sit down, take a break. Yeah. Thanks for coming, but I'm going to move on.
Acting my way into a new way of thinking. Moping is about thinking.
Yeah.
So I have to act differently when mope shows up.
For sure.
That is, Jordan, that's really good. I really like that about the don't mope kind of thing, because you already set
Yeah.
yourself up for some negativity that pretty much, yeah, when you're in a bad mood, guess what you're going to do to feel good?
Yep. Pull that phone out. Here it
Yeah.
goes. Down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Yeah. And as we've talked, when I was a young guy, it's a major production to go look at porn. I mean, it was only one place in town that had it, and greasy, dirty old guys were hanging around it. And it was, you didn't want to
Hmm.
walk like this. I don't want to be seen, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And now it's so easy if you got a phone that's got internet connectivity, which what not many phones don't,
Right.
you're in.
Yeah. You're in over your head. Yeah.
And everything is so sexualized in our culture, as we've talked before,
Yeah.
that it's everywhere, that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah. It surrounds us, sadly.
So putting together a plan of sobriety, and it begins with a decision of today I choose to be a sober guy, and not mope about it, go about my activities. So what happens when boredom shows up? How does that? Do I need to schedule every minute of the day so I won't get bored, or what's that about? Do you think?
Yeah. To me, boredom is probably one of the most powerful drawbacks into pornography. And I saw it in my own life. I could schedule every minute of every day. I worked a full-time job, back when I really struggled with pornography. I'd work all day long. In the evening, I'd play sports. I would spend time with my wife. And then Saturday morning would hit and I would wake up. I wouldn't have to go to work. My wife might be out running errands. It's just me alone with my thoughts, even worse. And before a moment's notice, I had my phone out and I was looking at pornography. And that was kind of the cycle, and boredom was always at the center of that. And it does come back to, can you just be aware and be okay with the fact that you feel bored? I think we're so scared of boredom, and we often don't know what to do with ourselves. And so this autopilot comes out and it's like, well, you're bored. You shouldn't be doing nothing. So let's make you do something, and let's make that something your little friend porn. And so we just turn right back to it the second we think that we're going to feel bored, instead of just taking that opportunity to do nothing. There's a lot of research that shows being bored is actually a good thing. Like, it does something for our brains. And we've turned into a society where boredom is not okay. You have to be doing something. And so sometimes there's this wall that has to come down, and that wall has to be broken for my clients sometimes, of, you're okay if you're bored. Like, just be bored. It's not it's not the end of the world. Just go through it, and learn. And it really is a muscle, I believe, that can be strengthened. And once you strengthen it, man, there's very little that porn can do to try to seep back in once you have learned to just be comfortable being bored.
So what if you're talking about a muscle here, an emotional muscle, and of course muscles get strengthened the more we put some stress on them and we work them
Yeah.
out, so to speak. And so you're really talking about a training program of strengthening emotional muscles
Mm-hmm.
and sitting. And I'm going to give you an assignment, 5 minutes every day. You need to sit and do nothing. See what happens.
For sure.
I can't even go to the doctor's office and sit and wait for 5 minutes without having my phone out.
Yeah.
And usually there's nothing on the phone other than TikTok or some other dumb thing.
Right. Right.
Okay, so strengthening that emotional muscle, doing nothing. I remember a while back hearing, I think it was on one of his podcasts with Tim Ferriss. It was either that or he was in one of his blogs. And there is a truly brilliant guy that men ought to listen to. Tim's just a great podcaster, but I really love the fact that he does these emotional experiments, so these behavioral experiments rather, on himself.
Yeah.
And pornography was an issue that he actually talks about. It was alcohol and pornography. He wanted to see what are the secret things, or the things I'm really kind of unaware of that are more controlling than I'm aware of.
Mm.
And so he sat down, and he's a very thoughtful man, and thought, alcohol and pornography, I'm going to test this out. So he decided that he was not going to watch pornography or masturbate for a month, nor was he going to drink alcohol for a month. And he engaged in both those activities. And so at the end of the month, I remember him saying, I was more productive at work. I genuinely felt just happier in myself. My girlfriend and I got along a lot better. I just enjoyed life much more. And the pulled back and he said, I didn't realize that maybe these things were connected to my general malaise. That he's struggled with depression most of his life. I'm not saying he found the cure to depression. I'm just simply saying I really admire him for trying that experiment out and seeing the hidden power that this habit had for him,
Yeah.
and that boredom certainly would have happened in a month. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not going to do this for a month and see what happens. And so maybe one of the things, I don't know, do you suggest this to your clients that try do nothing for a day, an hour a day, not an hour, but maybe 5 minutes a day?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I sometimes will take it further. Like I love stretching how the mind will work. And so, yeah, there's times where I'll ask them to sit for 15 to 30 minutes. I've given this challenge multiple times to my clients where just sit for 30 minutes or 15, whatever you can do, and not only do nothing, but don't move. Like try not to move a muscle in your
Wow.
body. Just sit completely still. And man, they'll tell me their mind just started racing and going crazy and started filling in things that they needed to do and everything trying to get them to move, to get up and to go do something. And once they've kind of gotten to a place where I feel like they are pretty strong in that area and that mental muscle is being developed, I'll give them kind of this grand slam challenge is how I look at it, where it really is highlighting the fact that there's something else driving all of your decisions and all of your emotions and feelings. And I can't remember where I discovered this challenge, but I did it myself, and it was a very enlivening and very challenging experience. But you go and you just lay down at a grocery store, right in the middle of an aisle.
You lay down in a grocery store.
You lay down in a grocery store, pick an aisle. The more closer to the middle, I think the more challenging. If you go to the pet food area, it's usually a little quieter. But if you're in that cereal aisle, you got a lot of foot traffic to contend with. So you just take a cart, go there, pop a squat, and lay down flat on your back in the middle of an aisle, not blocking traffic, not trying to be a nuisance, but just kind of along the side. Just lay down, close your eyes if you have to, try to count to like 30. And I promise you, every flare is going to go off in your mind, and things are going to be screaming at you to get up off the floor. You're making a scene. You're going to get in trouble. All these things are going to happen. People are freaking out. And when you lay there, you really do hear that other voice, and you hear it so loud and clear. You're like, wow, that's not me. Can I just breathe through this intense fire that I'm feeling and control myself to a place where I can stay laying on the ground? My favorite story is one of my clients was in Africa, and he was a missionary serving over there. I gave him this challenge. And in Africa, grocery stores are not like Kroger down the street. It's like a big, busy market. He's a very, large white man, and he had this challenge. So he laid down, and he told me like he could just feel people surrounding him. And he got up after 30 seconds, and there was probably a crowd of 100 people that had surrounded him, wondering, what the heck is he doing? Is he okay? They're all trying to figure it out. And he just gets up like, oh, that was so uncomfortable. But he did it, and he made it through and realized, wow, I'm not going to die if my brain or something is telling me to do something and I choose not to do it. And that to me is kind of that ultimate sign of, all right, that mental separation, that mental strength has developed enough that, yeah, you know what, you're good. You can handle the urges that are going to come, and you know how to deal with that. So,
Wow, that would be a mind blower. If I do that at my local Kroger, I'm sure clean up in aisle 6.
Yeah, another one
For
too.
our listeners, here, try this out, and then send me Bill at GuyShrink.com. Send me some comments. I want to hear if anybody pulled this off, and what it was like for you, and what was it like for security at the grocery store.
Right. Yeah.
Seriously. And you can tell them as they're escorting you out of the building, well, I heard this on Bill's podcast. Seriously, though, try it out. I would love to hear from any listeners if they tried this out and what the result was. Bill at GuyShrink.com. It would be great. And I'll share that with Jordan if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not going to get in trouble, right? If somebody does ask, are you okay? you can just tell them, yeah, I just, I felt tired for a second and thought this is a good place to lay down. So no one's going to get upset or cause a scene. So yeah,
Of course, what you're saying is working on that muscle, those emotional muscles, and that maybe it isn't that you have control of the thoughts as they show up, but you certainly have control of what you do with the thoughts when they show up.
absolutely. Yeah.
That reminds me of Dallas Willard, the Christian philosopher, who at a talk, many talks, said that he called them spiritual disciplines, practices of sanity, I think, and he said the solitude and silence were the two most necessary, he thought, in this world today because of all the craziness that we had. And somebody said, well, what should I do with that? And he said, well, do nothing. Just sit and do nothing.
Yeah.
And then the person said, well, Dr. Willard, why would I want to do that? And his answer was to see if there's anything to you. That was real. That's deep. That really is. And you're absolutely right to do that, like at the grocery store, or just to sit quietly for 5 minutes. See what happens to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Put yourself through it. And you said something really powerful, like that the urges, they're going to come, right? We want to so badly control what our thoughts are, what our emotions are. I can't tell you how many clients that I'll start working with, and I'll ask them what their goal is. And their goal is, I don't want to face any urges. I don't want to feel temptation. And I'm like, well, you're in the wrong field here. We're working on the wrong thing then, because I would need to create some kind of super pill that can eliminate all urges for you. But people have to realize, if you're going to try to step out of your cycle of using pornography, you might face 100,000 urges over the next couple of weeks and months, right? And you will, I promise, get to a place where the urges stop. But if your goal, if your focus is, I need to not face an urge, we're focused on the wrong thing. What we need to focus on is, can I get to a place where I'm okay when the urges do come, where I can still be in control of myself and my actions, regardless of what's happening on the exterior or what's trying to come in. That's that mental muscle that we can just get used to that territory of, urges are going to come. Man, we put so much power back in our hands that we can then just walk through it.
Okay, so I'm going to take you up on this. I'm going to do 2 weeks. I'm going to begin every day, like you said. I'm going to do some data, some checking out stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to try every other day. I'm going to try. I'm going to do it. I'm done it. Sit quietly for 5 minutes every day. And then I fail. And then I'm okay. And so 14 days, I end up 8-ish or so. What do I do with my failure? What do I do? When I come back and I go, hey, I screwed that up. What are you going to tell me?
Yeah. I'm going to say, hey, let's learn from it. Let's keep going. And, there is shame, to me, plays such a big part of just the whole pornographic world. And to me, that is the biggest hurdle, that if I could just rewire the way the world looks at porn, it would be to strip out the shame. I mean, I would say there's 10 times more shame associated with a pornography addiction than there is with an alcohol or drug addiction. We can hear that somebody's an alcoholic and our thought is, I'm not surprised, or yeah, that kind of sucks. That must be tough. But when you hear that somebody has a porn addiction, it's like, what's wrong with them? Oh, this is not good. That's really bad. And, I'm not saying that people who have porn addiction should be celebrated, or, when you make it a day, you should be celebrated. But what I do think is that pressure and that fear of going through that shame is often what holds us back. And, a lot of people will sabotage themselves, and they'll think, okay, I messed up once. I might as well give up because I'm never going to get free from this. And if you've ever heard of the 75 hard challenge, where, you're supposed to drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages of a book, do 2 workouts a day, take a selfie. And it really is kind of hey, let's help jumpstart you into a healthy kind of habit. I've known people who will go 70 days, 73 days out of the 75. They will forget to take a selfie and they will stop the whole program because they say, I failed. I didn't make it 75 days. And then they go back into their unhealthy habits of eating whatever they want to eat and not exercising, all because they forgot to take a selfie once. And if you step back for like 2 seconds and look at that, you're like, you're crazy. You lost 30 pounds over the last 75 days. You were working out, you're eating healthy, you're drinking food, you're drinking water, and you're going to stop all of that because you think you didn't take one selfie one day. And it's the same thing with pornography. We could make it a month. People have made it a month, they relapse, and then they think, I knew it. I'm never going to get out of this. I might as well just give up and stop trying. And it's like, no, just look at the progress that you've made. Yes, you slipped up once. We all are human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect, but can we take it with a grain of salt and say, all right, you know what? The last month, I can feel my brain is getting stronger. I can feel my ability to differentiate between what I want to do and what my urges are telling me to do is getting better. So let's keep building on it. Let's push forward instead of shutting everything down.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Failure is not final. It really isn't. So let's get back on the wagon, if you want to call it that, or the horse, and let's just keep going. But you've learned some things. What did you learn about yourself?
Yeah.
And I don't have to let that one, relapse control everything.
Yeah.
In my work with a lot of guys who are struggling with alcohol, many of them, well, I mean, I've tried this out to 10 times. And I've been to AA, in and out, in and out, in and out. But let's just keep going. Keep doing. You've got some,
Yeah.
you've got some things that are working.
Yeah. Yep. Start to look at the positives.
One thing that you did say to me, though, is that you were not a big fan of attachments on your phone to report your usage, accountability stuff. Tell me a little bit about what that's about for you.
Yeah. I've seen people try to quit porn using, porn blockers or software that if you do go to a pornographic site, it's going to send a notification to, your accountability partner or your spouse or something. And I'm not saying that those aren't effective tools. I believe that they can be. But I do think a lot of us think that if we just put a fence around our biggest struggle, which is looking at pornography, that as long as that fence is there, then we really don't have to worry about anything else. And we don't have to do the internal work where the true freedom comes from. But what I've found is that when those blockers are in place, we just get creative on how we find our porn. It might not be on our phone. We might somehow control the neighbor's TV with our Roku remote and, go to some channel that we know is going to have porn on it. And we got binoculars looking through the window and we're still getting our fix.
Now, that's imagination right there.
It is, but I would believe that somebody has tried that before. And, if we think about it, what we're really doing is we're strengthening our desire for it. We're strengthening and proving to ourselves that nothing is going to get in the way of us getting that fix and us being able to release and, go through all the sexual pleasure that we think comes from pornography. And yeah, I never recommend to my clients, hey, put a blocker on your phone, add me as the contact. I will never recommend that. If they choose to do it, more power to them. But that's, from my perspective, it can often be more detrimental than just working on the inside.
Okay, it makes a lot of sense. And in fact, in our conversation, when I'm hearing you, this is difficult, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
What you're saying, it's not impossible. And so many people approach this, and this is an impossible task. I've already given up. Jordan, in our last couple of minutes here, tell us a little bit about your coaching program and how if any of our guys who are listening can get in touch with you. How's that work?
Yeah. The easiest way to learn more about it, especially, is just go to takeabreakfromporn.org. You can kind of learn a little bit more about me and the work that I do. And there's some free resources, some blog posts that I've written that, can kind of help just direct you, especially in the early stage of whether or not you want to make the decision. And then from there, there's ways on my website where you can, contact me or set up a call and things like that. And, I normally work one-on-one with guys. I've considered going the group coaching route, but I think sometimes there's just such power with having that space where it's just you, it's just me. We're going to talk man to man and get real and talk about the things that are really going on in your life that may be driving some of these habits, these tendencies that you want to get rid of. And yeah, that's takeabreakfromporn.org. That's the website. Check it out. And, if that is you, if you're somebody who wants to take that first step, then let's connect and just have a conversation and see what's going to be best for you. Because it might not be coaching with me. It might be figuring out some other resource and, taking that step and just beginning to move in the right direction.
Okay. That sounds really hopeful, as opposed to you're stuck with this for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
So normally, like, 5 or 6 times, just kind of talking to you, checking in. Is that kind of what you do? I'm just throwing that out there. I have no idea.
Yeah. If I've taken different approaches with different people, and honestly, what I've found is the guys who are most successful are the ones who commit to meeting on a weekly basis, because I truly do believe that 95% of the result is driven by how well we get at managing our own emotions and how well we get at just having a place where we can express, man, I felt really happy this week, or I felt, really pissed off this week. And it's that commitment to, 2 to 3 months. Sometimes, I've worked with clients for well over a year or 2 years, and they are the ones who continually steer clear of pornography. They eliminate it from their lives. And I truly believe comes down to they know how to have a space where they can share what's really going on and just depressurize their whole system. And what I find is the people who just tap in for one session and then I don't hear again from them for, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the next message I get from them is, yeah, it's been pretty tough. I keep messing up. And it's like, well, yeah, you're probably going to, if we don't continue to, have that connection and that space for you to do that.
So going to the gym and talking to a personal trainer one time probably isn't, you might get some ideas, but you need to go a couple more times.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. So the elevator opens and you and I go in there and we're going to go down 10 stories or so, whatever, a couple seconds. So what's your little elevator speech to me? What do you want me to chew on once we get to the bottom floor and we walk out? What's our final talk today?
I've done a lot of thinking on this, and this is something that, I had to really get to a place where I could stand on this. And it's just give yourself a chance, believe in yourself. Don't always run. And I know this might be detrimental to our businesses, but don't just run to the nearest course or the nearest program that you can just sign up for and shirk responsibility, but give yourself a chance to fight through this thing. When our RV had the broken leaf springs on the mountain in Pennsylvania and we had, running up against a deadline to get out of there, I could have not easily, but I probably could have called an RV tech to come out and to just take care of it. It probably would have been a couple grand. We did not have the couple grand at the time. So it was left to us. And I gave myself a chance to just say, I'm going to take a stab at this. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but can I believe in myself enough to pull that drill out, take the first tire off and begin to unpack the layers of what needs to happen? And if you can't give yourself that chance or the freedom to take that step, I really believe that you're sabotaging yourself in deeper ways than I think you could ever realize. So just give yourself a chance. Just give it a try. See what happens. Take some notes, learn from it, and move on. Put a smile on your face.
Smile. Jordan, this has been great. That's a great elevator speech. It's a great. Let me chew on that for a while. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jordan Keefe's been our guest today on GuyShrink. We've been talking about dealing with porn in your life, and he's given us some really good wisdom there on what to do about that. And it's as opposed to seeing it every man's battle, seeing it. This is something that can really turn into a good thing for me if I manage this differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate being on.
Well, thanks. It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
Okay, GuyShrink. We're on all the good platforms. So keep us in your thoughts and send us a mail if you try out that little experiment that we talked about earlier about being quiet for 5 minutes in a day. Bill at GuyShrink.com.